In today's video, I'm going to talk about NBA players 25 years old or younger who are not having the seasons we expected going into the year a few months ago. And the first player I want to start with is DeAndre Ayton of the Phoenix Suns. And the thing is, Ayton has had the best year out of anyone in this video. He hasn't been that bad. He's had good games, but he's had some bad ones that stick out, like the first half against Minnesota last night, one of the worst performances he's ever had. Reading Suns fans' posts online, Ayton is definitely the most polarizing on the team. There's two camps in Phoenix. One camp thinks that Ayton isn't that great and they thought a bigger leap in shot creation was coming, and the other camp says the team needs to adjust its style around Ayton so he can be more engaged. I think we're almost at a breaking point with the Phoenix Suns. If you look at it from a coaching standpoint, they probably think an offense revolved around Ayton does not make this team harder to defend. This is a perimeter-oriented team. They like to shoot the three. They like to operate in the mid-range, and Ayton will have to adjust around that with dribble handoffs and mid-range shots. But I'm sure Ayton would want an offense more catered to him. The problem with Ayton is his style of play on offense is maximized when he's playing with guards that have vision. Ayton is tall, athletic, and can finish at the basket with a dunk or a hook shot, but he's not someone you initiate offense with because he's not the best passer or shot creator on his own. He doesn't have the best footwork or finesse to just go one-on-one 12 feet from the basket, which is fine. Every player has their own strengths, but when you just came off nearly winning a championship, when you signed a $130 million extension, when you tell the world that you haven't talked to the head coach in months, then people are going to want to see more from you. Right now, the Suns don't really have the guards that can accurately get him the ball with CP3 and Booker out. Chris Paul getting older is directly correlated to some of Ayton's problems. A lot of those easy passes at the rim aren't there. CP3's pick and rolls where he finds Ayton for a mid-range isn't there. Unless you're a Jokic level of passer or you can score almost at will inside the arc like Giannis or Embiid, it's just harder for a non-shot creating 7-footer to affect the game on offense. Looking at the other side of the ball, Ayton's defense has slipped this year from the games I've watched. I think some of that has to do with Jay Crowder being out and the team defense on the perimeter being worse. Some of that is effort. His effort has always been inconsistent. I remember hearing that about him when his draft strengths and weaknesses were coming out. That just might be who he is. We're almost in year 6 of DeAndre Ayton. The lack of engagement on offense might affect how he plays defense. But then that comes back to the coaching and how you're building this offense. He's not the best passer, he doesn't stretch the floor, and he doesn't have much self-creation ability. Even when Ayton is getting the ball in his spots, sometimes he doesn't get the seal on a post-up, so his first angle to attack is gone, he fumbles the ball, or a double team is sent and he's too slow to make the pass. Sometimes he has position under the rim, but he doesn't know how to take advantage of it. You want him to be more physical inside, but even with all those negatives, you still have a 7-footer who is very efficient underneath the rim. His mid-range has fallen off this year, but he was really good at hitting it in the past. He's a good defender when he's engaged. My issue is the team just needs to make a choice because the Suns are imploding. Is Ayton your second option long term? If he isn't, then we're just wasting everybody's time. If you do want him and Booker to continue to play together this decade, then the offense needs to be adjusted to where he's getting more reps. Obviously, people aren't going to like that because he's not doing well with the reps he's doing right now. He isn't wired like some other centers who set screens and barely touch the ball, which is a problem in itself. Jalen Green and the Houston Rockets are at a low point in their season. Something I've noticed with Green is, after the pick and roll, he will dribble the ball back to the three-point line when he had space for a mid-range shot or a floater. There needs to be some change of pace with how he attacks a pick and roll, because if he doesn't have the initial opening for the straight line drive or pull-up three, defenses know they have him. He's just got to find a way to generate clean looks at the basket. A lot of his shots are difficult and he's not in rhythm. Most people can live with misses, but there are times where he's in his own head, I think. There was a play in that game versus Minnesota where he was shooting 2 of 11 from the field at the time. He had an open shot but passed it up because he missed a bunch of shots before that. I will say a positive from him this year is he's getting to the free throw line a lot more than you expect. To me, there are 3 obvious things about the Rockets. Number 1, this team is young and most young teams aren't moving the needle. I think almost the entire team has less than 3 years of NBA experience individually, but you would hope to see some type of internal development even when they're losing. You can look at the Orlando Magic, OKC Thunder, and San Antonio Spurs. They're seeing some improvement from their individual players even if they aren't winning games. The Rockets are just one of the worst watches in the league. Some of this stuff isn't just a young team making mistakes. It's kind of a destructive style of play, honestly, that's just building bad habits. A lot of standing around, a lot of isolation, not a lot of moving off the ball. Number 2, the Rockets defense is a problem. Green individually, he does try and he does fight over screens on occasion, but he's not a stopper. The defense not getting stops means less transition opportunities for a young team that should be running. Half of the NBA has a higher pace than them. This team should be running. If Porter or one of the guys grabs a rebound, they should be running immediately, looking to score. They shouldn't be looking to slow the ball down. Their half-court offense is bad. No one moves off the ball, and most of the time you know what's coming. And number 3, Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green cannot coexist together long term. I don't know what the plan is exactly from the front office or the coaching staff. I refuse to believe they are running this Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green backcourt as a serious experiment. Porter can make some passes, but he's not someone who organizes an offense and sets people up as a priority. Porter is a good shooter off the catch. He should be a sixth man or a secondary ball handler on a different team. The Rockets need a point guard in that mold of George Hill, Kyle Lowry, Mike Conley. You need some type of balance in your backcourt. Having two overlapping skill sets or two players that are looking to score does not always work. There's definitely more pressure on the Rockets than other bad teams next year because they don't own their own first round draft pick in 2024. They have to do well in the draft and in free agency this summer. The "we're really young and still developing" excuse isn't going to last when you no longer have your own draft picks. You have to start winning games eventually. The whole environment is just kind of rotten and Green is developing bad habits. I'm not completely out on Green. He hasn't been that great, but it's hard to fully judge until the organization settles on an actual plan this summer. If you want to sum up this part about Cam Reddish, you can just say he's not playing any minutes because of Quentin Grimes being better for the role the Knicks need on the wing. The Cam Reddish experiment in New York has been in its end days for a while now. Every time I go on Twitter, I see a new rumor about which teams would be interested in Cam and how many picks the Knicks are looking to get for him. The Knicks traded a heavily protected first-round pick for Reddish exactly a year ago in hopes of him breaking out into the 6'8" do-it-all wing player people thought he could be coming into the NBA draft. There's 3 problems I've noticed. Cam does not have a clear role, which is part of his frustration. Number 2, he hasn't been a good defender and he hasn't taken smart shots in the minutes he's played. When you play for Tom Thibodeau, you know that guy is going to lose his mind about anything on defense. And number 3, the Knicks are winning games without Cam playing at all. I would understand if the Knicks were losing a lot of games and Cam still wasn't playing, but as I'm making this video, they are the 6th seed. What do you want to do when Quentin Grimes is playing good defense and hitting his threes? The offense is going to run through Julius Randle, RJ Barrett, and Jalen Brunson before it does Cam. When you're behind in the pecking order, you got to be able to do the little things like staying connected on defense and move the ball. His defense is inconsistent, and being a standstill shooter is something he's not interested in being full time. He clearly wants a bigger role. We've seen crazier career turnarounds. I'm sure there's a team out there that can make it work. If you're 6'8", agile, and can dribble, teams are going to give you multiple chances. He did have those playoff games against Milwaukee where he shot well, so there is hope, but just because he's a 6'8" athlete doesn't make a turnaround more likely. The last player on here is James Wiseman, and to be fair to him, he has barely played basketball since getting drafted number 2 overall in 2020. He's been injured and hasn't gotten much on-court chemistry with any Warriors players. He's had bad luck, but I want to talk about the Wiseman situation in a more general way. I was a little confused by some of the positive reaction when Wiseman scored 30 points versus the Nets in a game that was basically garbage time starting in the second quarter. I'm not saying how you should be a fan. Obviously, him scoring 30 points is good. But I know that there are Warriors fans out there that have clowned players who put up stats in games that don't matter. Everything about Wiseman is almost backwards to what I've been seeing Warriors fans and things the organization have said since 2015. The Warriors are very aware that they've made big men that play against them have significantly less impact than normal. Those drop big men like Hassan Whiteside, DeAndre Jordan, and Andre Drummond have a difficult time against Steph and Draymond. Wiseman is in a similar mold as those 3 players. I just don't understand how you can be aware of how Steph and Draymond make this position less effective, and then you draft a player who is in a similar mold to these other bigs you ran off the court in the playoffs. The Warriors bigs who have had success are guys like Andrew Bogut, Kevon Looney, guys that don't need the ball, can make a pass, set a screen, and rebound. Not someone who needs the ball, sets bad screens, and has to play drop coverage on defense, and he's not good at drop coverage. One thing I don't like about Wiseman on the court is that he likes to fade away against smaller defenders when he's near the basket. He's not really physical at the point of attack. He tries to finesse his way around. It's really simple. The Warriors did not need a drop big man that needs the ball in the year 2020. It's also not helping that the Warriors are trying to win right now. And if they want to move on from Wiseman, it's going to be hard to do that because his value is at its lowest and he's going to be up for an extension after next season. And that's it for me. A lot of this is simple. Most of the players on here are young and need more game reps, but I still wanted to make a video about them. I was going to include Scottie Barnes and Evan Mobley in here, but I think those 2 will fit in a different video, so I'll see you guys soon.